It was history in the making at the Infineon Raceway in California when Butch Leitzinger set pole for the third round of the American Le Mans Series, but it was not just one but two Dyson 675 cars that started from pole position, with the two Audi R8s behind them and JJ Lehto passing Frank Biela at the start. Peter Cox was having problems keeping the Ferrari 550 Maranello heading in the right direction and battling hard to make up positions after starting from 32nd on the grid. Spencer Pumpelly hit problems in the hazardous Porsche when the rear suspension broke. In the GT class, it was the battle of the Porsches, Pedersen Motorsports versus Alex Job, with Sasha Masson eventually getting past Johnny Molan to lead the class after starting back down the grid in 31st place when time had run out for the team in qualifying. Ron Fellows and Johnny O'Connell also had the task of playing catch-up from the back of the grid, but that's exactly what they did, passing Corvette teammates Gavin and Collins to lead the GTS class. One of the big stories of the race was when David Salins was leading it from Marco Werner after starting from very last on the rolling start. Robert Lidlow was using all the racetrack and more in the PK Porsche, and Butch Leitzinger watched eagerly in pit lane as James Weaver launched himself past Marco Werner in one of the best moves of the race and put the 16 car back in the overall lead again and continued to lead the 675 class. There were problems too for the olive green Ferrari, momentarily getting off course. And it was just another straight cruise to the checkered flag then to add another milestone to the history of the American Le Mans Series.
Just have excellent effort, and younger Steve doesn't have to practice his welding, so what more can we do?
Marco Werner put the Yerst Audi home second, while Johnny Herbert took third place in the last moments of the race. A week later, and the series continues with the fourth round, but it heads north to Canada now for the first of two races there, and the first street circuit of the year also at Trois Rivieres, close to Quebec. This is the 34th running of the Grand Prix of Trois Rivieres and sees the American Le Mans Series return for the second time to the 1.5-mile street circuit, where we expect to see the prototypes lapping in under a minute. Emmanuel Pirot set the fastest ever lap here last year, beating Cristiano de Mata's Indy Lights record that he'd set in '98. John Field and Duncan Dayton had a disastrous race weekend, which ended before they'd even got to the qualifying session at the Infineon Raceway. With the Lola virtually destroyed, it was expected that they'll be sitting out the next round while the car was rebuilt before returning to the series at Mosport. But the Intersport team arrived with a leased car, and just when it seemed their luck was back on the right foot again, electrical problems forced them to miss the qualifying session, and they'll start from 36th place on the grid. After a somewhat disorganised session in California, GT qualifying went back in the favour of the Florida-based Alex Job team again, with their 23 and 24 cars taking first and second in class. In the GTS class, Canadian Ron Fellows was outpaced by the Ferrari of David Brabham and Jan Magnussen after brushing the wall in practice and missed most of the qualifying session. Teammates Oliver Gavin and Kelly Collins were also outpaced and had to settle for second in class. Eclipsing the previous GTS qualifying record set last year by almost 2 seconds, Thomas Enger took pole by just 1/10 of a second in the ProDrive Ferrari. Having finally hit up on a setup, he went out and everything came together to pull off more than a perfect lap.
Oh, obviously amazing I mean, it's incredible that we are on the pole, because we were yesterday and this morning, both days, all the sessions, at least 1 second behind the Corvettes, and I think I just put everything into this one lap. Obviously, I was striving every lap to drive as fast as possible, but the quickest lap was very clean, on the edge, perfect, thanks to the guys, thanks to the Michelin, and I hope we can be tomorrow on the pace as well as we were today in the qualifying.
Still buoyant from the success at the previous round, the Dyson team arrived with both of its cars at Trois-Rivières, under no illusions though that it would be an easy task for them to repeat victory here. Andy Wallace was back paired again with Chris Dyson, but in taking the 675 class second, they were 6th overall on the start grid. Teaming up together in the number 11 Paynards, the Canadian Scott Maxwell and 21-year-old American driver Gunnar Jeanette. They pulled out over half a second over the Dyson to qualify 5th, and with the nature of the circuit helping them to close the gap on the newer cars this year.
Yeah, it has a bit. Aside from qualifying, Werner threw down a pretty impressive lap that nobody's been able to really even get close to all weekend. But yesterday morning we were, 4/8 off the Audis. We haven't been that all year, so definitely think the track does level things out a bit. It's really rough, it's really tight, it's good for the cars with torque, so we're going pretty good here.
David Salins partners up this time with Olivier Beretta in the number 10 Paynards, and they set 4th fastest overall and 3rd in the 900 class. The short, tight track was working to their favour also, and while they were a little way off the top 3, it was a move in the right direction for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic event. It's a little town with a great track, a little bit narrow in some place, but the 4th place for us is great because in a race, especially when it's 3 hours with the traffic and all these things, and the car looks strong on the warm-up with full tanks, so I'm quite confident. But the problem here will be to stay out of the trouble and to see all the tricky parts because it's quite narrow, like I said, but for everyone is the same. It's a very great event. I'm very happy to be here. Many fans, good atmosphere, very good quality of car and very enjoyable.
Victorious in Sonoma, the lighter 675 car did not have enough to overhaul bigger 900s here where it's torque that's needed to pull the car out of the slower corners. But this was no surprise to the team and the drivers, who've had a pretty good measure now on when and where they can capitalise on the advantages of this little Lola.
Well, no. At Sears Point last weekend, the track was ideally suited to our car, the lightweight that our car is. Here, the nature of the course, it's very low-speed turns, and then trying to put the power down coming out of the turns. And the rules for our car, we have a much smaller tire, and it's hard to put that much power to the road through a smaller tire. So we're struggling a little bit with that. The Audis are a little bit better at doing that. But still, the lap times are pretty close. The Audi, got us by a little bit in qualifying, but in most of the practice sessions and in the warm-up, we're all very close. So I think it'll be a very tight race. We seem to get about the same fuel economy, so it should come down to a pretty straight fight.
The champion Audi went 2nd fastest in class and took the 2nd place of the front row, with Johnny Herbert performing the qualifying duties and slowly bringing down the lap times to keep ahead of the Dyson car, but just not able to contend with the pole time.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of something that we've seen before, but the good thing about it was I could do 58, 59s all day long, and that's really what we need to do tomorrow. We need to have a car that you can drive hard consistently, and we've got that, and that's exactly what I always try and achieve for the race, is having that consistency where I can, even on an ease-off lap, I can still do a quick time, and today I eased off and still did 59, so I'm happy.
Having crashed in the Friday test session, the Infineon team Eurst Audi was back in one piece again, and Marco Werner was electrifying in the qualifying session, consistently putting in fast laps, and then pulled out a 57.740 to seal pole.
Not confident. It was very, very hard. I mean, to the former Formula 1 drivers, it's very hard for me. It's not easy. It's a difficult track, but I like street circuits. I know that from Germany. It's the first time for me on this track, but I like this track, and I push every lap very hard. And I mean, thanks for the guys from the Infineon Team US. They give me a very, very good car. Yesterday I have a mistake, but the car today was very, very perfect.
The two Audis make up the front row of the grid for what will be a 3-hour race this time, and it's expected to be hot. And there will, as always, be a great crowd of spectators here at Trois Rivieres. The Eurostar 8 was quickest in the morning warm-up, and thankfully a threat of rain had dissipated, leaving the umbrellas being used for shade from the sun as the pre-race build-up begins, with the drivers bringing their cars out onto the grid.
Well, I think it'll be an interesting race because I think I told somebody once before, it's a 3-hour race, and have you seen how many walls there are around this place? Anything can happen. The sister car, Dyson Racing Car's up in third place, which was a really good effort. We had some problems with understeering qualifying, which we think we found was the diff in the end. So we've got that all replaced now. So hopefully the car's quicker than it was in qualifying. The reason I think, one of the reasons that we're not quite as quick here as we were last weekend is that with a little 4-cylinder engine, with a turbo of course, if you stop the turbo through these corners like you have to, and you don't get on the power immediately, of course we get a lot of lag. And we're quite quick up until that point, and then we get on the throttle and we lose a little bit. And it's just a bit out of each corner, just enough to put us back where we are. But hopefully, I know it's difficult to pass here, but hopefully we can make our way to the front.
It was an Audi top 3 finish last year, with Dindo Capello and Tom Christensen taking the win. The Paynos team are hoping to get amongst the 900 action again, but there were problems for the 10 car even before the race had begun.
Yeah, we find a little problem on the downshift. I think the mechanic will be resolved that, I hope, because it's very difficult otherwise around a city track. It's always difficult, but worse when you are in a town, you know, especially with the traffic and all the bump. Anyway, I cannot do anything, so I will carry on with what is it, but just hope that they will find the problem.
JJ Leto starts the race for the champion Audi team, and if he can get another lightning start, as we've seen from him this year so far, then he could be in the lead from the outset. On the formation lap, ready for the start of this 3-hour race, the 4th round of the American Le Mans Series, its first street circuit of the year, its first of 2 visits to Canada. We're across the line and it's go. And Marco Werner under pressure into the first turn, but successfully keeps the lead of this race. And he had the 6.75, the Paynos, and also JJ Leto, who we're on board with now, all over the back of him as they go down now underneath the arches that forms one of the big features of this circuit here at Trois-Rivières, an hour and a half or so drive from Quebec, nestled between Quebec and Montreal. And JJ Leto attacking again, as we would expect him to on the opening laps of the race, knowing that overtaking is very difficult, and the best chance he's got is to do it now. You get a real impression of the forces at work on this circuit as it affects the driver. You'll see how when we see this shot, his head goes up and down according to the braking or acceleration. The moment he touches the brakes, the negative G just shunts him right down in the seat of that car as they come over to end lap 1, and it's Marco Werner then that leads from JJ Leto. Butch Leitzinger in 3rd place in the Dyson 675 car, the car that so triumphantly won at the Infineon Raceway just 1 week ago. And the teams have made the intrepid journey all the way from California up through the north of America and up to Trois-Rivières, somewhere in the region of 3,250 miles. The road journey for all the trucks, of course. Olivier Beretta in 4th place in the Paynos. Gunnar Jeanette has got ahead of Andy Wallace. Then it's Tommy Drizzy, and then it's the GTS boys who are already catching up with them, or keeping in contention. Of course, the nature of this circuit means the speed advantage is not quite as great here, but we've got a battle developing quite strong. Well, there's Andy Wallace going very slowly indeed and pulls off to the side, so I think Andy Wallace has got problems as we're on board in the Corvette. And there is Andy Wallace going into the pit lane on board the 24 car behind the second of the Alex Job cars. And there's John Field flying through, started from the very last place on this grid, and John Field has done a remarkable job, and he's up to something like 14th place now, having passed Timo Bernhard and Sascha Massen just then. So he really has got to move on. And that car that was flown from England on Wednesday prior to this race, they only got it on Thursday, have had to work frantically to put it together. Managed to get hold of it from Hugh Chamberlain, and we weren't expected to see them at all, but they have done. As we look at Robert Liddell in the PK Sport Porsche 911 GT3 RS, and there's another one of the same Porsches, but it's the Racers Group 67 car that's embedded in the tyres at turn 1, and Andy Wallace is retiring with engine problems. What a disappointment for the team. But meanwhile, John Field is up to 9th place now, second in the 675 class. Ron Fellows in the number 3 Corvette is 10th overall, 3rd in the GTSs, and he's got David Brabham behind him in the number 80 car as we go on board now. And this is a replay of Ron Fellows. That's David Brabham in the 80K Racing Pro Drive Porsche ahead of him. And you can see there's a whole bulk of traffic that they're up upon now. They get past one of the Porsches. Here we are down into, this is the turn 1 as they head on to the Roux Grand Prix, heading for turn 2. It is Porsches, and again the onboard camera is still with Ron Fellows, and he's trying now to go alongside the Ferrari. Got a good drive out of that, and almost caught up on the back of his teammate as well, as we flick to the rear of that car now and takes the position. That's how he moved up to 3rd place, and there is Ron Fellows. He'll be moving to Mosport in a couple of weeks' time for his home race, and be looking forward to that, but plenty to do in the meantime now. And there's John Field, also stuck in that traffic, but what a great drive from the Intersport team so far to get this car all the way up, back on board inside the Corvette, slowly picking off the traffic. And of course they're lapping at around about a minute 2, and coming round very, very quickly indeed on this circuit, so no real time to relax, and probably getting up to a maximum of 145, 155 miles an hour on the longer part of this circuit. But alongside and passing now the Porsche, he's got John Field ahead of him in the 675 class, but not going to be able to do anything about him. The difference in the cars means that he won't be passing him unless he hits problems along the start-finish straight now, back down towards turn 1. And there's Marco Werner, and what an electrifying qualifying session it was for the 900s when he set that lap, which just blew everybody's mind. Nobody really was expecting him to pull out some sort of speed like that, but he was just absolutely stunning, and really got the admiration of everybody for doing that. So he comes around now over the start line, and plenty of spectators here at Trois Rivieres. The early morning cloud that we feared was going to give way to rain has broken now. Blue skies, you can see how bright it is, certainly very warm. The temperatures were climbing as the green flag was waved at the beginning of this, with the track temperature approaching around about 100 degrees, about 88 degrees, as we look at the Ferrari 550 Maranello of Thomas Enger that leads the GTS class. He's got a Corvette welded right behind him in the form of Oliver Gavin. And Thomas Enger as well put in a stunning lap in qualifying as well. So that is the GTS battle at the minute. You have got Ferrari first, Corvette second, Corvette third, and Porsche in the wall. And that is number 68. It's just customizing the bodywork to that Porsche. He's just off the track there. He's on one of the corners. As we look at the champion Audi, JJ Leto behind the wheel of that car. And he goes into turn 1 as well, along the Route de Grand Prix, and down into the turn 2 at Desforges, and then down to the archway before they turn left again and head along the longest part of this circuit, the Boulevard de Carmel, which gives him a little bit of speed, but all the time working through the traffic as he passes or attempts to pass one of the Alex Joe Porsches. Strong as ever here and having a better time in qualifying than they did back in California. So Marco Werner continues to move on. Got a bit of space between him and JJ Leto as well, and JJ just couldn't do anything about Marco in the early part of this race. And of course, as we've said, the circuit, the nature of the circuits as he passes the 56 car just makes things a little bit more equal, although the 900 stronger than the 675s here this time, because they've just got a little bit more torque, a little bit more lower end grunt to get them out of the turns, and that's where the 675s are struggling, as we heard Andy Wallace talking about before. So around he goes now, out of turn 3. Slight kink at turn 4. Marco Werner got to keep it consistent. Frank Bieler, who celebrated his birthday yesterday, will take over from him a little bit later on in the race. Whether he'll be doing the shorter stint or the longest stint, we don't know at the moment. And of course, 3-hour races against 2 hours 45, the normal race distance. So things slightly different strategy-wise. They have to work on different calculations. There's JJ Leto just passing the 66 Porsche. So JJ lapping and through the pit straight, which isn't a straight actually, because it encompasses the turn 10. So the pit straight is actually a dog leg. That's where it breaks off now, with the teams on different sides. Well, James Weaver in 3rd place and leading the 675 class, just reporting to his pit that the brakes are getting a little hot, so he's having to back off and slow a little. So he's given up on trying to stay in contention with JJ at this particular moment, but will of course have to keep his eyes open for the Paynos that's further back from him. And he's got one of the GT Ferrari 360 Modernas ahead of him now. And there's John Field continuing on. The green bodywork different and showing a bit more of the original MG bodywork that used to be on that car previously, and they've sort of hodgepodged it back up together. And messages. Oh, there's the 60 car that's spun as well. That's Robert Liddell that spun at the turn 6. And some fluid there on that. And this is the 11 Paynos that's going to hit the wall, and does. That is exactly the same turn. And there you see the 60 car. Is that in any way connected to do with that fluid that we can see on the circuit? There's Marco Werner passing one of the GT Porsches, and he's at turn 6 as well. And there's David Brabham again at turn 6. He was 11th overall and 4th in the GTS class, and he's stopped now. Now, can he get that car moving, or is that a technical problem? Well, that's 3 cars we saw all at the same turn. And that's either coincidence or it's connected in some way. As into the pits comes John Field. Fuel going in that car. And Duncan Dayton being strapped in now. So John Field, after that opening blistering stint, hands over. And Marco Werner in the Infineon Audi R8 just continues on as Duncan Dayton gets himself settled into that car and goes for the drive out of the pit lane and gets that car back out on the track again. Cold tyres, no tyre warmers in this series, although the sun will have done a lot to keep them warm. As he comes alongside, the olive green Ferrari just has to go wide a little bit there, but just keeping it safe.
The car was great, absolutely great. I think when Weaver passed me, we were in a bit of a dogfight, and the fuel pickup light come and the engine cut out, and the fuel pressure light stayed on. So the guys radioed, if those cars run out of gas, you'll blow the engine up. So we came in. It only took 12 gallons, so obviously there's a problem with the pumps with the old car. It hadn't been ran a year and a half. So, you know, we'll just try to get out there and catch up some ground and try to make it work.
John Field, what a storming drive he had then. And into the pit lane comes the 24 Porsche of Timo Bernhard. The pit crew start to jump around and get into activity, and that's a replay of him hitting the wall just on the right-hand side. He clipped that wall there, and that's all it took. It was hardly noticeable, but he's damaged the suspension on that car. They've refueled it, and to wait and see now. They're losing an awful lot of time while they repair that car, but of course it's worth getting it back out. And Marco Werner picking his way through the traffic. John Field ensconced again in the traffic. There's one of the Pro Drive Ferraris. He's got a Paynos and cars of all classes all mixed up at different parts of this race now. But Marco Werner just keeping it neat and tidy. The olive green Ferrari ahead of him there, the 550 Maranello, that there's very little resemblance to the actual Ferrari in the build now. It's got the same heads, it's got the same roof, but everything else is virtually different. The engine inside it, or most of the engine, has been rebuilt and redesigned by Elan, who make the engine for the Paynos team. And the Raffinelli team have built the rest of the car themselves back at San Gimignano in Tuscany in Italy. As through the arches goes Marco Werner, and it's looking very good for him. Just building up a bit of advantage, and he's kept it steady. Into the pits comes Olivier Beretta. They put fuel in that car and sent him back out again. David Salins is partnered with him this weekend. As in the pits comes the American Sweets car, and Tommy Drizzy takes on a little bit of fuel. Michael Lewis is out in that car, ready to go, and that's Butch Leitzinger getting off the racing line and slowing down, and Leitzinger's got a problem. Leitzinger is a long way away from the pit lane as well, and that car is going to stop there, and this is unbelievable. They've lost one car in this race very early on, and now the 675 car comes to a halt at the side of the track, and that's going to be the safety car. The safety car is going to be out for that. In the pits now, JJ Leto, and he's just taking on fuel. Looks around him, they're not changing the tyres. They're going to double stint those Michelins, and out he goes. Squeal of the rubber, and also stopping as well is Stefan Gregoire as well in the 360 Modena. The 28 car has stopped too. There is the rescue team pulling away that stricken 675 car as the pit lane comes alive now. And Marco Werner has handed over to Frank Bieler. New tyres going on that car. They've got fresh rubber. Reminder that the champion team didn't change theirs. New fuel on, and out he goes, and keeps the lead of this race though.
Yeah, the start was okay. It was perfect for us, and I can push in at the first laps. It was okay. I have a little distance, but not too much to JJ. Then I saved the tires. I think that comes a yellow flag, and you must save the tires. It's not important to have so much distance between JJ and me, but I think it's come yellow, and no, it was.
So Marco Werner just keeping it sensible in the race. Then as we look at JJ Leto, stayed in that car, stayed with the tyres, just put fuel in, and second in class at the moment. And in the background there's Olivier Beretta, who is in third place now with the retirement of James Weaver, and Butch Leitzinger's 16 car that brought out the yellow flags, and that safety car which has just closed the pack up a little bit. And Olivier Beretta, the Monegasque, who has actually won 2 American Le Mans championships in the GTS class when he was driving for the Arica Chrysler Viper team, that he also used to drive in the FIA GTs with Carl Wendlinger, and they were a dynamite duo then. But the Paynos, which is last year's, an evolution of last year's, the JML team's car, and they have struggled with it, but doing their best, and this circuit is working well for them, and they would dearly love to get on the podium. Well, plenty of spectators here at Trois Rivieres in Canada, turning out for this Trois Rivieres Grand Prix. All sorts of support races have been taking place on this circuit as well, but stands all around the circuit are packed. And currently looking at this man leading the race overall and leading the LMP 900 class. And Frank Bieler behind the wheel of the Audi R8, the Infineon team. And that is also last year's car, it has to be said, as one of the GT cars has problems at turn 1. That's Kevin Buckler in the Racers Group Porsche 911. So not sure whether that's as part of an incident or whether he's actually pulled off with mechanical problems. As we now look at the GT class, in second place is Ralph Kellner's then, the 35 car, the Ferrari 360 Modena. Lucas Law is leading that in the Alex Joe Porsche. The other Alex Joe Porsche, of course, been stricken with problems in the pits, although back out again now. And Mark Lieb in the 43 car, another of the great German Porsche drivers, is a little way down the GT class. He's actually laps behind the Kellner's car, but looking for, of course, a way past if he can. Also in a Porsche 911 GT3 RS. And the Ferraris have got a lot more competitive. The Porsches were walking all over them for quite some time, but the Ferraris slowly getting better all the time in the GT class. Of course, in the GTS class, the 550 Maranellos are absolutely dynamite, but Mark Lieb is through and past now, on his way. The Orbit team car. Round through the arches as we pick up once more with Frank Bieler. And he, of course, drove here last year, also in the Audi. And was with Emanuele Pirro. And Emanuele Pirro not driving in his championship last year, in this year rather. And through he goes, just keeping it consistent as well, carrying on from what Marco Werner did early in the race. And there's the 12 car. And Frank Bieler will be catching up with the American Sweets outfit very soon indeed, but just picking his way through. The temperatures have climbed a little bit more. You can actually see the heat haze from some of the camera shots as we go on board with Johnny Herbert and JDA Leto's 38 car. And just have a look at Leto's head again. Look how it bobs down when he hits the brakes. Absolutely unbelievable. And as soon as he hits the accelerator, it's just back up again and up and down. And that's happening to him lap in, lap out, and wrestling away at the steering wheel of this mighty beast, this huge engine car. 900 kilos, the weight limits, the minimum weight limit on this car. Looks in the mirrors there, just keeping an eye on what's behind him. Brakes hard, he's got a couple of GT cars ahead of him. Car sliding as he gets the power on, and there is the 56 car. Hill beam chassis car with a couple of GT cars behind it, and there's one of the hazardous Porsches and another Porsche, the familiar distinctive looking Alex Joe Porsche. And there is Duncan Dayton really trying hard to get past those cars and hit the limit and had to stand on the brakes. The Corvettes go through, and there's Frank Bieler in the Audi race leader and just keeping himself going, and he's got all these guys to pick through, although they'll see him and they'll get the blue flags from the corner workers, just to inform them that there is a faster car behind them, and the drivers do respect the faster cars. As we look at the rear of the number 3 car of Ron Fellows and Johnny O'Connell, the team that's been together so long now, and Johnny O'Connell is inside that car at the moment, and they're leading the GTS class, having got ahead of Oliver Gavin. And there was the champion Audi. Well, there is the champion Audi as we look on board Kelly Collins. And got that Ferrari to go through. The Corvette and the champion Audi got very close together. On board again with the Corvette as it goes through past the pit lane, and every time they go through, of course, the car dumps down the telemetry to the pit lane, and they can... Oh, there's the 30 car that... I'm not sure whether he actually pulled off then, or whether that was part of an incident that we didn't see the whole of it there, but the car's still going. He's certainly just waiting for a gap in the traffic, I think, to get going again, but that was a little bit of a mystery as to what Clint Field... Oh, here we are, we've got a replay now, and it is in fact the same team, but the 675 car that pushed him in, well, caused him into his spin, and then of course he was stuck in the middle of the track, and when we saw that before, he was recovering. Well, in the pits now, the number 10 car is changing drivers over. Olivia Beretta has got out of the car. David Salins is getting in, and they had radio problems with that because Olivier Beretta couldn't hear them. They had to put a pit board out to get him in. And problems now for the 675 car. The 56 car has come to a standstill as we're back on board with JJ Leto. And out of the car for a retirement then for Jeff Bucknam. What a shame. Into the pit lane comes JJ Leto. It's going to be tyres, it's going to be fuel, and out gets JJ Leto. And Johnny Herbert, ready to get in, puts his seat liner in that's moulded perfectly to his body shape, slightly smaller than JJ. And JJ not helping to strap Johnny in as they would normally, and he's just gone straight over the pit wall. So now the fuel has gone in, they can change the tyres. Johnny been told to plug in his comms units so that they of course can talk to him and he can talk back to them. All they're waiting to do now is just strap him in. The tyres are on, they are ready to go. And there's one of the Ferraris that stopped. Thomas Enger's 88 Ferrari has stopped. And that's just to the exit of pit lane. He's pulled over, we're told, and parked that car as the champion Audi comes out of pit lane, passes the Ferrari. And what a disappointment for the Care Racing Pro Drive team and Thomas Enger. And didn't even get to change over to Peter Cox. So disaster for them. And Frank Bieler inside that car. But now, there's JJ Leto, and you can see how tired he is. And JJ, that's quite uncharacteristic for him. A smile on his face, but you can tell just how hard he's been working. But JJ normally sort of looks a bit of a spring chicken when he gets out of the car these days. So they are finding it hot today. It is very difficult indeed for them, especially for the guys in the enclosed cars, as that guy gets in his car, Ron Fellows, and just goes through the process now of strapping himself in. The team working on the car, of course, at the same time. And they were leading the GTS class, still shown as leading because they're still in the pits with the one light on the side of the car there, and the same one light but in red for the 900 class leader, and also the overall race leader as well, Frank Bieler. And Johnny Herbert, of course, has got fresh rubber on that car. Going to be interesting to see whether he can do anything about the advantage that Frank Bieler has as he comes up behind the 360 Modena in the GT class and looks for a way past the car and gets it very easily indeed. Frank Bieler, of course, no slouch, knows this Audi very well indeed. Partnering with Marco Werner for the first time in the team as he goes through another lap completed and into another minute or so lap of the circuit as we're back on board with Johnny Herbert through the arches. Wonderful power plant sounding very good. Now the prototypes just side through past one of the fastest of the GT cars. Just makes it look so slow indeed. And Johnny Herbert is behind Frank Bieler, but there's a lap difference behind them, or between them. And Johnny will want to get past. He will want to unlap himself, because if he feels that he's faster than although time's running out, he might just have a go at just trying to catch up a bit, because you never know what can happen. We could see another full course caution, and that could allow him to catch back up again. Class leader in the GT class as we look at Sascha Masson, who swapped between himself and Lucas Luhr. Saw his teammate just hit the wall before and broke the suspension, and Johnny Herbert went very close to the wall as well in one of the practice sessions and just took the paint off, and just so close he was. Still trying to find a way past Frank Bieler and unlap the champion Audi to try and close down the deficit. There's a lap between them, a minute that he's got to make up approximately. Just not getting a chance to get past him at all, but staying with him all the time. He goes past David Salins. I think that is in the 10 car, or it could be Scott Maxwell in the 11 car, the Canadian, whose partner with Gunnar Jeanette in the 11 car this time. David Salins and Olivia Beretta in third place in the Paynos and on for the podium position at the moment, as both the Audis come up behind Porsche this time. And Johnny just slightly tighter there and just looking, just all the time, just working to get away and get past that Audi. As they go past, I couldn't see which one of the cars that was. It looked like one of the 675 cars, and he's on the inside this time. And has he got him? He has. Surely, no, he hasn't. Just couldn't get enough acceleration out of that corner. And he's tried again now into the arches, and he's got him this time. And that's not for track position. Remember, that was to unlap himself. And Johnny Herbert will now try and close down that gap. He's got about 5 minutes remaining in this race. It's not going to be enough without the assistance of an incident to close up on the back of that Audi. But Johnny, every race seems to be pushing against time over the last few laps and making up severe amounts of ground. And it's just not enough time this time for him to do it. Here's a replay of that. Didn't do it on turns 1 and 2, but got on the inside and got a great drive out of turn 3 to do it. And here we see him do it again. Did that nicely. Frank Beeler, of course, did think, all right, fair enough, I'll let him go this time now. And didn't want to risk any possibility of problems and let him go through, but knowing that it's going to take an awful lot of luck for Johnny to catch up and try and threaten him again with taking the race lead. So it is that car, the number 1 car, Frank Beeler, and Marco Werner leads the race, leads the 900 class. Johnny Herbert second with JJ Leto in the race and in their class as well. There's JJ still recovering from his stint earlier, and he's all right really. And behind the Paynos now comes Johnny Herbert, but the Paynos again laps down. And should get through without any difficulty at all this time. But it'll take a few moments or so before he gets a clear part of the track that he can do. And nicely does it as he goes through turn 1. On the inside there is the podium, where they will be assembling very soon indeed as the 23 car gets past the GT1 leader. Gets lapped once more. Johnny Herbert goes through the arches, round the back.
It's Ford Oliver. He's running 202 1s to 202 6s. He's using a lot of stuff, though.
So, information being passed over to the Corvette as we're on board. Very familiar and distinctive sound of that C5R engine, just awesome, and one of the loudest things on the circuit as well, almost deafening. The Corvettes and the Paynos, very distinctive in their engine note as well. As we look down from above, get a good bird's eye view of the Audi on the track, and there's Johnny Herbert, the 79 Porsche ahead of him, that I think is currently on third place in the GT class at the moment, as we're on board the Jackson Murray 79 car. Back in full view, Johnny again still just trying to close down time as he's behind the 550 ProDrive Ferrari now of David Brabham and Jan Magnussen in their second race in that Ferrari, and again just zips past, no problem whatsoever. The sun continuing to blaze down on the circuit here as we get later into the afternoon. Round once more, and it's all looking very good for the number 1 Audi team. We've got quite a commanding lead, over half a lap, but Johnny just carrying on regardless. And there's the leading car then. So it's not even half a lap, it's a lot more than that. Thought he pulled away a little bit more, but he hasn't. So number 1 leads number 38, who in turn leads number 10. The Paynos of David Salins, a Belgian driver who's driving the number 10 car for the first time, alongside Olivier Beretta, whose earplugs had actually disintegrated whilst he was in the car, and he couldn't hear a thing. The noise was giving him a headache, and he couldn't also hear the pit instructions from the team. So he went to the back of over the wall to just recover a little bit now, but he's back in the pit lane watching what's going on as we see the 23 car of Sasha Masson behind third place in the GT class, David Murray. And he is a lap down or several laps down. Sasha Masson will be looking for a way past as quickly and cleanly as he can, and he does that now as the 79 car politely moves out of the way. And there we go, see it from on board as he goes through, and a bit of a difference in the speed of those cars, same specifications. And there is the 37 car. What a great day they've had. They've come back from so many problems as the race leaders behind him. And the 37 car leading the 675 class. They're going to be on the podium. They didn't even expect to be on the start line, but they're going to be on the podium here as we get the white flag, which indicates this is the last lap. The clock has used up all the time, so the 3 hours are over, and Frank Bieler starts his final lap for the final time down the Boulevard de Caramel, down to turn 6. Then he'll go along another short straight with just a slight right-hand kink in it, the Rue de Cologne, before then he comes round turn 8 and turn 9 on Ryan, and down towards turn 10, which is known as Villeneuve after Gilles Villeneuve, and then along the avenue Gilles Villeneuve to the checkered flag that will seal the win here at Trois Rivieres, and he will be absolutely delighted. A nice birthday present for him that Marco Werner put the car on pole, but an even better one that the pair of them have taken the win. And over the start grid he comes now. The checkered flag comes out into the afternoon air, and hand up in celebration, and they have done it, and they've done it very convincingly, as they have been all weekend with that incredible qualifying pace, and now a race victory as well. Champion Audi across the line, and 2 consecutive wins for the year's team, with Frank Bieler and Marco Werner achieving a convincing win ahead of Johnny Herbert and JJ Later. John Field and Duncan Dayton take the 675 class, 4th overall, and the GTS class win for Oliver Gavin and Kelly Collins, while Lucas Law and Sasha Masson take the GT class win. The now customary way to celebrate the win at Trois Rivieres, and it was not as easy as it looked from the outside.
I was struggling a bit after my little accident here, because the steering wheel was not straight, or I guess the toe was bended, not in line anymore, and the dive brakes were gone. But it was a great race. The car was still okay, a little bit too much understeer because of the accident, but great performance, and I was really happy for the team that we could bring it home.
Big celebrations for the Payonars team, who get their first podium place of the year, with Olivia Beretta and David Salins bringing the number 10 car home in 3rd place.
We did a very nice race. The team did a great job. We just have a little problem on the warm-up lap before we put the car on the grid about the gear shift, but the mechanic worked very hard and quick to make it working. It was a little bit slow, but at least we have no problem. David did a great job. I'm very happy to drive with him, and the whole team did a good job, and now is the first podium. We did well in Le Mans, well in Sebring, and I think if we can improve the place, it will be even better.
A fitting end to the painstaking efforts of the Intersport team, who went to so much trouble to even make it to the race, but to take the class win was just rewards.
It's just wonderful, man. We just, Dyson's had some bad luck, and at that point we just said, let's bring home the win, get those points back. We lost at Sears Point. Great job by the team. Duncan, what a wonderful drive he had. Just hi to my wife and Taylor, my little baby girl. See you at home tonight, babe.
Frank Bieler and Marco Werner still head up the 900 class championship. John Field and Duncan Dayton now rise to be the 675 leaders. It's a 4-way tie between the 4 Corvette drivers in the GTS class, and Lucas Law and Sasha Masson are storming away in the GT category. A difficult race for all, but another worthy visit to Trois Rivieres, and now the series stays in Canada for the 5th round that will be at Mosport.
Here we go.